Good morning. Do you ever get that, you ever find yourself in the situation where you have to set a boundary for your kid? Like, this cannot happen, this has to stop. But then you find yourself on the front lines of World War III, and you're wondering, wait, did I do the right thing here? And you're bracing yourself and you're kind of, things going out of control suddenly. I know I need to put a boundary up here, but I feel really out of control and totally lost and overwhelmed. So today I want to give you 3 tips, you could call them, three things to remember. I'm not sure. I'll define it at the end. But there are 3 things I want to tell you when it comes to not just setting a boundary, but implementing a boundary so that you can feel more in control, you can feel calm, and ultimately you can benefit from the boundary and your children can benefit from the boundary. That means that your kids feel valued, and they feel secure, and they feel comforted in their big emotions. I'll take an example. I'll give you an example from my life this morning. This is why I came up. My son, he's 4.5. He's a really cool kid. But being 4.5, he's very much colors his reality through fantasy. And in general, so you know, in child development, a prospective child development of the mind is that a child starts off very much in their own body and in their own self, and everything sort of is shaped around them. That's why we say kids are really self-centered. That's a bit of a criticism, but it is self-centered. They are at the center of it all. And slowly through their relationships, they come out into the world. And ideally, they come out into the world and they feel valued in themselves. They feel secure in relationships, that they can expect to be valued by other people. And they're safe in relationships with other people, that they'll be heard and understood. And if not, that they can tolerate it. And that they have purpose in the world, they have efficacy, they can make an impact on the world, that they have meaning and purpose. And our job as parents is to help our children to bring them into reality, from fantasy into reality. That can be a little rocky sometimes for a kid. That can be really hard, just like it is for an adult, right? For example, when I expect something to happen and I have this story set up in my head about how things are going to happen, and then it doesn't happen that way, it rocks my fantasy. It wasn't reality, it was in my head, it was a story I was telling myself, it was an anticipation, expectation, and it didn't happen. It can be very difficult for me. It invokes a lot of strong thoughts and emotions, and it can be challenging for me. And so we want to help our kids while they're young and they're developing and they're starting to learn about themselves and other people and what they can expect from other people and the world around them and their place in the world in general. We want to help them to develop their sense of self and their sense of security so that they can tolerate the big emotions, and they can hold them, and they can ride the wave, and they can feel okay. Everything's going to be okay. I'm just thinking, oh God, I wish someone had done that for me. Oh, how my life as an adult would be so different if I had a parent who did that for me. So I have this son who's 4.5. He's really very independent and very self-assured, but it's a little bit fantastical, and it's important for me as a parent, for me and my partner, to give him a sense of his limitations, because that keeps him safe in the world, right? No, you cannot just cross the road where you want to cross the road. You know, the car, you don't control the cars with your mind. A car will come, God forbid, right? In this case, my son has developed a penchant for money, and it's very exciting for him. He realizes he can buy stuff, he can acquire things. All he needs are these shiny coins. He's 4.5, he's excellent with math. And so I want to nurture this passion, my little entrepreneur, and I want to nurture his excitement about just math and having things, and it's fine, but you can't take money. You know, my husband and I, maybe we'll have some spare change. We put it here, we put it there. We've wised up and we put it in one spot, and for some time we were actually hiding it, but you know, we're inconsistent with that. So he's found it again, and so I'm just noticing this hair here and it's bothering me. So I'm just tuck it away. Okay. So he's found this money. Now, I don't want to go around and lose it and feel myself out of control, and call him like, you're stealing and you can't do this, but I do need to teach him the value of honesty and help him realize that, help him bring him into reality that there are limitations on what you can have. You can want something, but you can't always have it. And I think we all experience that a lot in parenting. Okay, you can't always get what you want. in the wise words of the Rolling Stones, you can try sometimes, but you can't always get what you want. So yesterday in fact, he had acquired 40 shekels. He had woken up early one day and was, I heard him scrounging around in the kitchen, and he acquired 40 shekels. And he wanted to go to the corner store, to the Makolet, and he wanted to get a toy. Now, aside from the toys being very poor quality and he loses interest in them very quickly, and aside from that, which bothers me around it's just the value of spending money, the big value here is honesty, right? The big value I need to teach him is about being honest, about stealing. Simply, ethically, we don't steal. We don't take things that don't belong to us. And now in his mind, it does belong to me. Because in his mind, he's created a story where it is his. But Imen Abba did not give you that money. But I sold something. I sold. He goes out like a lemonade stand, he sells his toys. I sold something. So we don't buy that. We just ride that out and say, Imen Abba did not give you that money. So you cannot spend it. So instead of telling him you've stolen it, or instead of telling him, give me that money, it's not yours, which I suppose I could, we've decided that the message we are going to tell him is that Imen Abba didn't give you that money. That is the reality. Because what I'm trying to do is to not threaten. I don't want him to feel too threatened as we come out of fantasy into reality. As a therapist, it's the same. That if you're sitting in my therapy office, I wouldn't say to you, that way. You've got this all wrong. No, this is how it is. You've been telling yourself this story this whole life, and that's not true. That would be very anxiety-provoking. So you have to be conscious when I tell my child, when I reshape his story, that I give him a story that he can hang on to, that can be true for him. So saying you stole that can't be true for him. And telling him, give me back that money, it's not yours, that's not true for him. Even Abba didn't give you that money, that's for sure true. That he cannot deny. Everything else he can deny. He put up a stink, obviously, and he did it yesterday with me, and then today with my husband, taking him to Gun, and what do I want to tell you now? I want to tell you the three things that I came back. I was pulling out my driveway, and my husband was handling it home, and I pulled back and I said, I got to tell you this, like hearing it from inside the house, and so I'm going to tell you the same. First, when you set a boundary, and for especially young children, and it really doesn't matter, and even as adults, you put a boundary up, like the cop pulls you over and says, you can't speed. You cannot speed. Hi, the reality is you cannot speed. And they put a boundary and they give you a ticket. That's a lot of people are like, what? I wasn't speeding? How could you? It's your fault, right? We say like, that asshole cop. The fact is, I have to take responsibility, right? And that's what boundaries do. We're giving children an opportunity to take responsibility for themselves. The key word here is not responsibility, it's themselves. It's that they start to feel themselves. Not in fantasy, but in relationship. And that's how we feel ourselves. In fact, anyone who I was reading a book yesterday, solitary confinement actually creates insanity. And people who are in solitary confinement for long periods of time have a very hard time reintegrating into the world because they have disconnected with themselves, because they have not been in contact in relationships. Infants who are not nurtured in relationships fail to thrive. That is a clinical term. They literally die of a broken heart because they are not interacted with, and therefore their brains do not develop, their bodies do not develop, they do not function, they die of sadness because they don't have relationships, and their brains atrophy because we need those relationships to develop. So putting responsibility, he has to take responsibility for himself, means he has to recognize himself. That hello, you exist and you matter, and the choices you make, they have an impact on the world. So the first thing we have to do is we have to set a boundary. We have to recognize what is okay and what's not, and feel confident in that. If we don't feel confident in the boundary, that could be either because we are not clear on it, we're not clear on what our values are or what our needs are, and we're feeling insecure there, or because we're scared. We're scared for some reason to put up the boundary because of the impact it's going to have, and we're scared of what's going to happen next. So the first thing we need to do is set up a boundary. If you're scared of setting a boundary, or you don't know what it is, pause here. Ask for help. I'm here. Ask for help. You got to figure that out. the next thing, once we have our boundary and we're very clear, this is the red line. And for me, the red line is you're not spending this money. You're not spending this money. You are not spending this money. It's not being spent. You can have the money, you can keep it in your purse, but you're not going to spend it. A purse, by the way, in Australia is a wallet. And an American purse is a bag. I had to learn that language when I was in Australia. Anyways, my husband is Australian, so I know, I just wanted to clarify that. So you can have it in your purse, you can have it in your wallet, but you cannot, I just pictured my son with like a sparkly sequin pink purse, which is fine, but that was the image I had. It's like a messy soccer wallet. You cannot spend it. That's a boundary. It's very clear to me. You're not spending it. That's the no. That's the no. It's clear to me. I'm not scared. I'm going to hold by it. I'm going to stand strong to it. Now, he obviously is going to have really strong emotions here. He's going to be angry at me. How dare you? How dare you threaten my fantasy? He's going to feel really disempowered. Like, what? What? But I thought that it was mine. Now, can't communicate this, but in his nonverbal understanding of the world, I thought this was mine. I just wouldn't. I took it because that's, in my fantasy, that's how it works. He's going to maybe feel frightened. Maybe he's going to be just in general overwhelmed by this flood of emotion. And he's going to be super flooded by it all. Now, by noticing that, by understanding that that happens, I can hold space. And what I said to my husband was, imagine stepping back in your mind and making space for this. Imagine literally stepping back and just creating space for it. Because what most parents do is they step forward and they say, no, it's because this. No, let me explain it to you. And anytime you're trying to explain or rationalize, answer the question why it's happening, we're rationalizing it. And that means, and we're taking up space because we're uncomfortable with what's happening. We need to step back and just give some space for it. Just a little bit. Give some space. Let's just observe it. You know, oh yeah, she's right, Liba's right. This is what's happening, big emotions. Now, if I have trouble with that, it might be because I'm experiencing my big emotions around this. I might be experiencing my sense of futility, that I feel out of control, that I'm frightened, that I'm angry and put out by all of this. Maybe this reminds me of my own experience of being parented in a not-so-conscious way, and that I really don't feel like I have boundaries here. I feel like I'm being taken over here. That's also important, and we need to pay attention to that. So we need to set a clear boundary. We need to set space, create space, literally in our minds, take a step back and make space for the experience that anyone who encounters a boundary experiences when they realize that there are limitations to their fantasy, to their wishes, and to their wants. That actually there's a reality here that extends past your fantasies, and that we need to be a part of that reality. And finally, we need to be able to tolerate what comes up for us as parents, our own sense of disempowerment and futility and irritation and aggravation. And when you can do those three things, then you can really support your child in the boundary setting. So it's one thing to know how to set a boundary, and that's important, but we also need to accompany our child through the process of experiencing themselves in the boundary. And that can be a little bit rocky. That comes with waves, and we need to hold their hand through it. And if we struggle with it, it could be that we need to hold our own hand through it. So these are the three things that I want to share with you from my own experience with my kids and setting boundaries. And if this is something that resonates with you and you want to learn more about it, or you want to work on it with me, remember that I have a program coming up, a 12-week live program in person in Jerusalem starting November 18th. Registration closes on the 11th and the early bird ends tomorrow. So if you want to save 83% of the cost of working with me privately, then get in touch with me. You can send me a message. If you have any questions, if you want more information about the program, or if you want to register, get in touch with me, send me a message, and let's have a chat. And we can delve into this a little bit more, a lot more actually, in the program, in the group program. So thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, again, PM me, put a comment below, let me know if this resonates with you at all. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.